Kalimera, thank you so much for
Just a minute,
making me
Milena.
part of
Just a
this
minute.
event.
Let me just put your presentation on the screen because it's showing
Okay.
on
Yes,
the left.
absolutely.
Oh, I think. Okay. Now,
Okay.
yes, everything's showing properly.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity to add value to this event. What I want to share with you today is insights from the space that we operate in that basically crosses the knowledge about human behavior and behavior change and sustainability in tourism. So with the talk today, I'll share with you some insights on how behavioral science can actually be utilized in order to make tourism better for the places, for the destinations that we want to preserve and that we want to see thriving for the people who reside in them, but also the people who travel. And of course, for the economy, for the global tourism economy, but also for the economy of the places where tourism is happening, because this is the essence of why we do tourism in the first place. So I will structure my talk around three pillar topics. The first one is to share some insights on why I think that behavioral science can actually play a really big role in sustainability, both in understanding what are the challenges that we have been facing so far and why we have been facing them, but also in resolving that and really accelerating the transition that we need to be making. I will share with you some of the insights from the work that we have done, experimenting with how, with behavior change, you can literally program destinations for responsible behavior. And we'll give you some examples from the work that we have been doing that reinforce or confirm that these approaches make sense. Just a little bit about myself. I connected the consumer psychology or the human behavior space with sustainable tourism with the PhD program that I did between 2003 and 2009 in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. at the George Washington University School of Business. And this is what actually first activated my interest in finding ways to bridge what we know about human behavior and behavior change from the individual level to the community level and, of course, to societal level, and the efforts to make travel more sustainable. Around the time when I was working on my dissertation, behavioral economics as a knowledge field really began receiving more attention. This is after Dr. Daniel Kahneman received the first Nobel Prize in Economics that was received by a non-economist. So this was a milestone event, and this is really what made many policy development, business leaders, and society start paying attention to this space. And it just happened to coincide with the time when I was working on my studies. That activated my journey to becoming an expert in employing insights about human behavior, specifically to the context of tourism and sustainability. I am the author of, to the best of my knowledge, the first book that actually looks at the strategic use of behavioral economics in the context of tourism. And after spending about 15 years in academia and working for the World Bank and other organizations in supporting governments and international organizations in advancing sustainability in tourism, 4 years ago, I started my own company, which is called BehaviorSMART, which experiments with advancing or utilizing knowledge from behavioral science into solutions that help both destinations and businesses be more sustainable and engage people quicker in becoming more responsible. So just a little bit of an introduction about what is behavior smart thinking and what we know, what we have learned or how we have advanced our understanding from the advances of behavioral economics. So in general, when we talk about being behavior smart and utilizing knowledge about human behavior, we talk about being really realistic and accounting for how people think, decide, and act in a specific situation in order to develop and design solutions that actually work for people. So in the context of sustainability, we are looking at why and how people treat and respond to sustainability, and why is it that sometimes they act and sometimes that they don't. I noted that you shared some of the studies that keep reinforcing the fact that people want to be good travelers, they want to be sustainable, but we are still seeing a big gap between the declared intention of being a responsible traveler and even paying more, sacrificing some comforts and so on, and the actual behavior once people are in holiday mode. So the idea is really to be very, very realistic, and based on this human realism, really to minimize the friction between how human behavior and human psychology really works and the goals that we have set out for ourselves. As I mentioned, behavior smart thinking is really inspired by the rise of behavioral sciences in the last 2-3 decades, which have moved our understanding about how we as decision agents act in different socioeconomic contexts. So in the past, many situations, both in the public life, in commercial situations, or in private life, were to look through the prism that decision makers, decision agents are 100% rational, that every time they face a decision, they really go and proactively find the relevant information. They compute the different scenarios that are possible, and then actually arrive at the decision that is really the best, accounting for all the pros and cons. In reality, behavioral economics killed that notion or belief by suggesting that, in fact, we as decision makers, including in many situations which are very important for our life, which relate to healthcare, to finance, to our finances and investment behavior and so on and so forth, are actually fond of decision shortcuts that allow us to avoid the whole process of finding information, comparing different options, and really identifying the best one in these rational terms. We also now know that people often in certain contexts, when there's a certain combination of factors, ignore information, even if it's readily available and very easy to obtain, that they're highly influenced by the moment, and that there's factors which are especially important for sustainability and acting on things such as sustainability and climate change, such as the fact that we have a hard time imagining the future, and whenever we are forced to act on something which is extended into the future, we steer towards more immediate and present moments, and that generally vague and complex ideas overwhelm us. So what does that translate to? I've selected here just two very easy everyday examples just to illustrate what that means. So imagine that a traveler is out shopping, preparing for an upcoming camping trip. They need a coffee pot for their camping trip. They like the one that you see here. They take it to the cashier desk at the outdoors gear store that where they're shopping, and the person behind the desk tells them that if they're willing to walk 10 minutes down the street, there's another store that carries the exact same coffee pot at 10 euro less. And if that traveler is like the majority of buyers in this situation, they will invest 10 minutes of their time and actually go and save the 10 euro. Now, if the following week, the same traveler is on the market for a backpack, the same situation repeats. They like the backpack that you see here at the price of 650. They take it to the cashier's desk, and again, the person behind the desk tells them that if they're willing to walk a couple of blocks down the street to another outdoor gear store, they can find the exact same backpack for 10 euro less. And if that traveler is like the majority of buyers in that situation, they're going to forego the opportunity and actually not make the effort to save the 10 euro. This, of course, is a great illustration of the fact that the context and factors in the context can actually lead us to treat one and the same amount. And in this case, we're talking about money, but the same applies to time and other quantitative items, quantifiable items, to treat them differently. And from a rational decision-making point of view, obviously, this is a deviation from the golden standard. One more example. Imagine that, as in at most events, there's coffee breaks, and out in the hallway there's coffee. You have 3 cup sizes from which you can pick. And if you're like the majority of event goers in this situation, you will reach out and grab the middle size because it doesn't feel too small, it doesn't feel too large. Now, what happens if on the next day, on day 2 of your conference, the vendor taking care of the cups changes the cup sizes, and what used to be the largest yesterday is today the middle. And again, what we are going to observe is that the majority of the event goers will reach out and grab the middle size. So why is this indicative of the insights that I shared earlier? It is because it again shows that in many cases, we are highly influenced by the context and the design of the choice set that we are facing. So in this case, instead of making a decision about how much coffee to have based on how much coffee you have already had and how much coffee you know is good for your body, and so on, the decision is actually driven by the design of the choice set that you're presented with. So with these 2 examples, I just wanted to quickly illustrate the type of understanding that behavioral economics has brought to us that helps us understand these deviations from the rational choice making and employ them to different contexts. Now, I'm not going to go into too much details in the full set of theoretical frameworks from behavioral economics, but as it relates to sustainability and understanding why it has been so difficult for travelers and tourism workers to adopt, there's 2 important things to understand. One is that behavioral economics has made us understand the importance of context. So just as I illustrated with these quick examples, one and the same person can end up making different decisions depending on the context, on the specific decision situation that they're placed in. So we now know that, yes, individual characteristics, previous experience, cultural specifics, value system, all of these things matter, and they shape some of our decision-making and actions. But the power of the immediate context, the power of the people who are around us, the power of the choices that they are making can sometimes be overwhelming and can lead one and the same person to make very different decisions. Another important contribution of behavioral sciences in the last 3 decades is really that understanding that the decisions that we make are channeled through 2 systems in our brain. Our fast decision-making system, or what Daniel Kahneman refers to as System 1, is the decision-making system that likes to make shortcut-driven choices. It's highly influenced by the context. It leans on all sorts of factors that can help it avoid the analytical path towards identifying or reaching a decision. Now, that doesn't mean that we are never using our rational decision-making. On the contrary, there's still a number of decisions that we channel through our slow decision-making system, which is referred to by Daniel Kahneman as System 2, and that really actually employs analysis and compares the different options before choosing the optimal one. And it's really important to understand that how modern life and our modern socioeconomic realities have changed and evolved has pushed a higher share of the decision-making of the decisions that we make in different socioeconomic situations through the faster or shortcut-driven decision-making system in this model. So let's look at specifically at something that also, to the extent that I could understand the starting presentation, you refer to. And that's the fact that we are increasingly seeing, when we talk about sustainability, we're increasingly seeing desire and declared intention and understanding of the importance of being responsible, not only when traveling, but actually in daily life, and the reality that we see, especially in travel. So there's different data points that are circulated in terms of what is the level of awareness and how it's increasing among travelers about the importance of being sensitive to climate change and being in line with climate-friendly practices and so on and so forth. But in any case, data is showing that the awareness is growing. At the same time, the rate of increase of buying, paying more for, and making sacrifices in the name of sustainability is definitely nowhere near the rates of awareness. So one of the biggest challenge that we are facing now is the gap between the intentions or what people declare and say that they want to do and their actual actions, which we refer to as the intention-action gap. Let's look at what behavioral science actually tells us about that. As I mentioned at the beginning, one of the key contributions of behavioral knowledge is that first we can really try to understand why sustainability is so difficult and why we are having such a hard time to reprogram the industry towards more sustainable practices. So what I've done here is really pull several points that are extracted from different studies and papers that give us information about traveler psychology and decision-making. So one of the first things that we need to understand is that when travelers travel, they pursue an experience. They're out there on holiday to create memories that they are going to take home. So in that sense, even for the ones who are very responsible, who are committed to sustainability principles when they're at home in their everyday life, sustainability is simply nice to have. Experience is always the main driver of their choices and their actions. We also, given that an increasing number of decisions, including made by travelers, are driven by our shortcut-driven decisions channeled through System 1, they're highly influenced by what is set up as the easy option and what is the design of the context. In many cases, the actions and decisions that end up producing unnecessary waste, that end up leading to food waste, to low spending, to disrespect to local cultures. These are decisions that travelers make through their system one, rather than a mindful choice. So it is really important to understand that a number of choices that produce undesired impact actually are channeled through system one. We also need to understand that when people travel, they release controls that otherwise guide their responsible behavior. So think about it this way: the same way that when you're at home with your daily routine, you take care to eat certain foods, to adhere to a certain diet, so that you are maintaining a healthy lifestyle, certain exercises, avoiding certain foods and drinks. But when you go on holiday, you actually violate that. So if at home you try to drink a glass of wine in the evening on weekends, and then during the week you actually avoid alcohol, when you go on holiday, you don't do that. You want to try the local wine, you want to relax, you want to enjoy, and that makes you deviate from the patterns that guide your everyday behavior at home. That same pattern repeats also with responsible behavior. There's studies that indicate that even for people who are very committed to sustainable behaviors at home, once they set foot on the plane and start their holiday, they actually deviate from these, unless it's just as easy to practice that as it is at home, which is almost never the case. As we said, and also I think I saw that also on some of the starting slides, that we are also increasingly seeing that travelers, yes, they are aware and awareness continues to rise, but also they perceive sustainability, thinking about sustainability as overwhelming, and as something that is in direct conflict with relaxation and the sense of being in leisure mode, which means and which explains why on so many occasions people have ready information right in front of their eyes about what is the right thing to do, what is the responsible choice, and they openly ignore it. So you can see that it's really not that easy to simply provide information and educate and then expect that this is going to lead to behavior change. And then also when we are talking about leisure, about travel behavior, there's something else also. Typically our behaviors are guided by our expectation about what will be the outcome of a certain action. But in travel, there's a disconnect between the outcome and the behavior, because I am enjoying a holiday on a Greek island, and maybe I'm ignoring the fact that there's a water shortage, and I am just splurging and enjoying and overusing water. By the time this becomes a problem, I'm going to be gone. And so the negative impacts that my behavior triggers are staying for the local hosts and the local businesses, but not for me. So we also are losing one more control mechanism that could help us steer travelers in a more responsible direction. So with all of this, we are now also overlaying the fact that the socioeconomics of contemporary lifestyle have also switched and changed the decision-making patterns for travelers. So if in the past we had decisions that were made in sort of a comparative, careful manner that looks at different options and so on, now equipped with our digital devices, many of the decisions, the buyer decisions for activities, for restaurants, elements of our itinerary end up being made during the journey itself. So what that has changed is that from making most purchase decision in a calm, rational system 2 mode during the anticipation phase of the traveler experience, we actually now are seeing a much higher share of decisions being channeled throughout the first 3 phases of the experience, including when the traveler is already on the road or at the destination, when they're much more influenced by the dynamics, by the smells and scents and sounds of the destination, and that naturally shifts the pattern in which they're making choices. So this is another factor why an increasing number of decisions are actually more likely to follow the pattern of system 1 rather than system 2. So in that sense, looking at everything that we know from behavioral science and looking at how we can employ that human realism to the context of traveler behavior, we understand that travelers engage in unsustainable practices, not because they're bad people and they don't want to do the right thing, but because in many cases, unsustainable practices are programmed to be the easier, the automatic choice. And in many cases, in order for them to actually make the sustainable choice, they have to enter into direct conflict with the main reason they're traveling, which is the experience. So in that sense, we are looking at a profile of a traveler who wants to be good, but doesn't really want to make the effort because they're on holiday, who prioritizes experience over sustainability, and who is highly likely to make choices based on what is set as easy and what seems to be most appealing in terms of helping them create memories that they take home. So the answer to this, or the solution to this, is that we need to move away from the notion that travelers will be the drivers of the sustainability transformation that we need, and that ever sustainability can be demand-driven, and move towards the models that where sustainability is driven by the supply side, which would mean destinations and businesses taking over the control of making sustainability part of the design of the way that the industry operates and the way that experiences are delivered. And that, in turn, will then close the intention-action gap and will bring us to a situation where sustainable choices will be the not dominant choices for travelers. Now, how does all of that apply to destinations, and how can we use what we know about human behavior and behavior change in order to support the destination's efforts to make tourism more sustainable? So again, without going into the depth of the makeup of decisions, I want to just illustrate how we use insights about the different decision modes that travelers go through at different stages and for different decisions throughout their journey, and how we use that in order to design and set up choice situations where sustainability is the most likely decision outcome. So in general, we looked at the decisions that travelers make in 2 groups. We put them into groups. One group are operational decisions. These are the decisions that travelers make, excuse me, that relate to practical aspects, such as how to get from the airport to the hotel, what hotel to choose in terms of location, price, and so on and so forth. So when we are dealing with decisions of that nature, of operational, functional nature, influencing them or increasing the likelihood that the sustainable option will be selected is possible when we use default options, when we make the desired choice effortless, and we incorporate the right choice directly into the design, very often eliminating the decision process. Now, we also, however, often deal with decisions which travelers make based on the pleasure-seeking nature of demand in travel. This is when they're making choices that relate to the experience and the experiential value that they expect to gain during their trips. So whenever we are in that, dealing with travelers who are in that decision-making mode, we actually look to present the sustainable option as the irresistible option, as the one that's more exciting and that brings experiential rewards. So when we understand the different decision points, we can then employ different behavior change tactics at different points of the traveler journey in order to program the entire journey through the design of the supply ecosystem towards more sustainable patterns. So when we look at individual choice points, we would address them with behavior change tactics that sometimes present the desired option as a norm, or that activate awareness in a specific moment, or that make a choice easy, appealing. And in very many options or situations, we actually use default options. We just set the most responsible option for our destination as the default option. So just a quick example of the types of actions that we would utilize. For example, to make the right choice easy, we would work with an attraction to make it very easy for guests to take public transport or to walk in order to reach that attraction. So you can see that we are targeting a very specific choice point. Or we would work with hotels to set towel reuse as the default option. So again, if people want their towel changed every day, they have the option. They just have to take action only in that case. If they don't take action, the default option says that they will have to reuse their towel. Or we use norms, for example, by working with tour operators or national parks, to introduce leaving no trace behind behavior as the local norm to follow. So you can see that it's very targeted and very focused on specific choice points. But how all of that comes together in order to program a destination for more sustainable consumption in the context of leisure travel. I'll just lean on a couple of examples. One is from the work that we have done with Visit Finland, that specifically revolves around their very ambitious net zero goals. Those of you who are familiar with the efforts of Finland in general, the country has very ambitious climate action plans, but also the tourism sector has set very ambitious goals and is really proactive in reducing the carbon footprint of the tourism economy. So with them, we looked at what is the big overarching goal, or what is the overarching climate action sustainability goal, which in this case is really to lower the footprint of the visitor economy. And what would be the perfect behavior? What would that mean in terms of ideal golden standard behavior among travelers? Well, that would mean that travelers would always opt for either the net zero option or the low footprint option. And so the next step for us is then to understand what are the things that currently prevent or stop travelers from going for that behavior, and what are the things that can encourage them. So this is where we utilize these insights from behavioral sciences about what drives and what are the principles that shape decisions and how the different decisions are influenced. And then we understand that in many cases, people are simply not aware and they're in pleasure-seeking mode. So they don't think about saving the earth. In that sense, what we can do is reprogram the supply ecosystem by working with the different players along it in order to set net zero options or low footprint options as the default option. And this was the essence and the priority of the work that we did, to make it easy to facilitate, to help travelers whenever that's needed in order to increase the likelihood that they will go for the more responsible option. And then at times we actually use the peel. So we would, for example, work with local DMOs to present net zero experiences as super attractive, very Finnish, something that you must try if you're coming to Finland. So actions like that, again, assigned and practiced alongside the entire journey, actually really lead to that programming effect of the local supply ecosystem. So here's the example of how at different points, the DMO, the hotel, the operator, and the experience provider all use smart and targeted behavior change actions in order to program and steer the behavior in the desired mode. Another quick example from Skåne region in Sweden. Skåne region, for those who are familiar with tourism in that area, has done an outstanding job in promoting local food through the network of local restaurants. So if you go into an average restaurant in Skåne region, they will always highlight the local meals, the seasonal meals. They will always have a special that's local and seasonal and so on and so forth. But that's not the case for the events industry. And actually for Skåne, the events industry represents a pretty significant share. So we worked with them to help them figure out how they can use very targeted behavior change actions in order to reprogram the events sector in a way that increases significantly the demand for local food. And so again, we approached this using what we know about from behavioral science and employing human realism in order to understand that to increase the economic impact of events through local food buying, that would mean that event goers would always, or at least in the majority of cases, opt for local food and drink. We understood that the reason that they aren't doing this is because of awareness and because their focus is on doing business, on maximizing the value of the event. So in that sense, we opted for actions which would make it very easy or incorporate into the design of the food service at events the local choice, and where needed, it was also supported by actions that were making it easy and appealing. So in that sense, again, a combination of the DMO efforts that bring local food, that make it top of mind for the traveler, and then hotels that basically design their breakfast buffets with local as priority, and then venues that present local food options as exciting and more interesting, so that whenever event goers are faced with a choice, they actually go for that. And the final example that I want to give you is from a program that we are currently executing across 4 countries within Europe, that is called The First Mile. The focus is on working with small and medium enterprises, with small and medium tourism service providers. The program covers Italy, France, Slovenia, and Norway. And what we're doing there is really helping 80 SMEs use very simple techniques that help them utilize these very investment light and disruption-free actions in order to improve behaviors such as waste management, reduce single-use plastics, food waste, promote local food, encourage smart mobility, improve visitor flow management, and then optimize the use of energy and water. I hope that we would be doing things such as rewarding people if they bring back their waste after a day out in nature. So this is kind of utilizing appeal, or we would increase awareness for people who are just not thinking about the fact that there's nobody to pick up their trash if they leave it out in a natural park, and we provide them with what they need in order to be able to pack and bring out their waste back. So this is just an illustration of the type of easy actions that we feed these SMEs. I hope that in the next opportunity that I get to speak about that, I'll be able to share very specific results, because we are getting the data from this season's experiments just now. And I hope that I'll be able to share some really exciting examples that show how behavior change can also make a big difference for the efforts of small enterprises, which all of us realize are the ones who carry much of the burden and who have really a hard time executing the things that we know will make a difference, even if they really desire to do so. So just to sum up, employing behavior change in the science of human behavior on destination ecosystem level really helps us reprogram a destination ecosystem for the right behavior, regardless of whether travelers are that much concerned about the footprint that they leave. So in that sense, this ecosystem approach that is supply driven, but that distributes in a very targeted manner the influences that different stakeholders execute, leads to low burden on individual level, but high impact on the ecosystem level. It also normalizes sustainability, because taking one of the earlier examples as an illustration, if you are for 3 or 4 days at a destination, and everywhere you go in your at your hotel for the morning buffet, lunch, dinners, at the event, everywhere you see very clear and distinctive focus on local food, then eating local food and paying attention to local food and trying local food and making it part of your experience is essentially normalized. Another benefit of this is that we see that these kinds of actions lower the entry point for disbelievers and hesitators. Many of us in our work have faced the fact that businesses, especially in post-COVID realities, when they're struggling with the recovery and the economics of that recovery, are simply not on board or have a hard time starting the sustainability initiatives that their destinations expect them to. So these easy actions actually have really made a difference in terms of engaging more of the smaller players than otherwise is possible. We very often hear that these approaches make sustainability refreshingly easy and disruption-free. And the reality is that in many of these cases, they produce cost savings, but also because we utilize psychological mechanisms. In many cases, we do it in a way that also enhances the experience and the satisfaction that travelers gain during their trips. So I hope that with this, I have sparked just a little bit your interest in using knowledge about human behavior to support sustainability efforts. I have incorporated here the QR code to our Knowledge Corner, where we have publications and many sources which are made available for free for the industry to utilize and hopefully benefit from that, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there's such.